Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Wednesday. This is Diana Perrault, Manager of Chapter Development at NHF, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar. It's a follow-up to our previous introductory webinar to the new DIY platform available to chapters, and it's also known as Do-It-Yourself Fundraising. Just a few housekeeping items for this afternoon. There is a webinar coming up on Wednesday, May 22nd. We'll be sending an invitation out soon to chapters, but that particular webinar will be geared toward new staff under 1 year of employment at your chapter. So if you have any ideas or suggestions on things you'd like me to cover, please feel free to email me at the email address you see on your screen. And as always, please make sure that you're a member of the chapter coffee shop to stay up to date on the latest updates, news, and announcements, both from NHF and chapters alike. So as a reminder, this platform is open only to chapters. So if you have any updated staff members, or if you want to add someone or have questions about how to be added to this, please let us know. And with that, let's go ahead and just dive right into today. So on today's webinar with me is Katie Cooper, Manager of Chapter Development at NHF. And as I mentioned, I'm Diana Perrault, Manager of Chapter Development. And so today's webinar is a follow-up to the introductory webinar that we hosted on DIY. And we are both so excited to continue this discussion regarding the new DIY program and hope that you find today really helpful as we dive deeper into our plans to launch this for chapters as yet another tool in your development pocket. But we're also going to spend some time today really talking about some of those overarching themes and questions that we received through the engagement survey that Katie sent out after our last meeting. So we will be opening up the line for questions at the end, and so as we move forward with the presentation, please feel free to send in those questions via the chat window, and we will definitely make sure to answer those at the end of today's presentation. So before we jump into what DIY is and provide that recap, we wanted to take a few minutes to once again talk about how we got here and acknowledge the respective teams and staff that have collaborated to create this resource. During the Walk rebrand, there was a lot of talk about what's next in fundraising for our chapters, and there was really this urgent feeling to provide NHF and chapters a platform to really help us diversify our revenue even further. So after some initial conversations, we realized that advancement and chapter services at NHF were both thinking of the same solution, which is DIY fundraising. And at that point, it really made sense for our teams to really collaborate and work together to research and invest in a platform to make DIY a reality. So with our communities at the forefront of it all, we partnered with Donor Drive, who many of you are familiar with, to begin the journey as we created this program. So on your screen right now, you see Michael, James, Tracy, myself and Katie, Maureen, Jay, and Elizabeth. At any time that you might have a question, you don't have to necessarily just reach out to Katie or myself. Any one of these folks would be really excited and helpful in answering any questions that you have. So just as a recap, because I think this is important, especially for those who may not have been able to join us on the last webinar, is why is DIY or do-it-yourself fundraising valuable to your organization? And quite frankly, it's just one of the most exciting growth opportunities for nonprofits, and it's definitely one of the fastest growing types of peer-to-peer fundraising out there. For those that aren't familiar with DIY, it's a fundraising channel that really empowers your community of supporters to raise money on your nonprofit's behalf by starting a fundraiser of their own at any time, without really compromising any of your other campaign efforts that are currently going on. So the DIY part, it really refers to the notion that your supporters have the flexibility to create an event or fundraiser that's personal to them, not attached to a larger nonprofit campaign or event or even the walk. So your supporters can get creative, have fun, and really support you and your organization during a time that works best for them. It really does offer that flexibility, and basically they can fundraise any way they want, whenever they want. It requires minimal oversight from staff, which is such a great perk, but it also engages those would-be fundraisers who otherwise may have been lost in your traditional fund development initiatives. So as you see on the screen, while DIY will never be a replacement for your signature events or your capital campaign, it does have specific benefits that make it a worthy addition to your peer-to-peer fundraising portfolio. So it adds flexibility to your fundraising. It targets individuals who want to get involved beyond walk or other fundraising events. It engages with minimal costs and better efficiency. And what I love is that it increases geographical reach. We see that many of our chapters are either covering large geography areas that are just so large that we can't necessarily get our development staff out there. But what this allows anyone to do is really sign up for a fundraising program, create their own fundraiser, and wherever they are, they can really participate and be a part of the chapter no matter where they're at. So I really love that. And again, it introduces you to new donors. With those that create these new fundraisers comes with them all of their friends, their family, their coworkers. And so it really does increase our breadth as an organization to get to know more people and to educate them about why our community is so in need of their support and those dollars. So through the survey, we learned a couple of very exciting things that you're excited about. And we're really excited to share this afternoon. What we learned is that it's inclusive. Chapters really felt like the branding and taglines felt very inclusive to internal and external community members. So there was something to offer all those people who say, how can I help? But they're unsure of where to start. We found that you guys thought that this was user-friendly. Donor Drive is familiar, and it made people feel like it's user-friendly for staff, and you have the confidence to help your community members navigate it. Since it is a familiar platform for those of you that are already a part of the Unite Walk, this is such a great perk because you don't necessarily have to start fresh and relearn something. It's very, very similar. This opportunity through DIY, it increases opportunities to engage your entire geographic region. Many of us state or even region-wide entities, it's not always reasonable for community members to get to chapter-sponsored events, and so DIY really breaks down that barrier. You liked a lot that this is participant-centered, and that's great because so do we. It really allows a supporter to choose unlimited avenues to support us, which is why other organizations have increased number of donations and active participation. And so I just think that when we are looking at reasons why DIY is really at the forefront of what we can do as fundraisers and as chapters that are looking to diversify our revenue, keeping in mind that, it's really the donor that we want to steward. We want to make sure that we are doing all that we can to keep them engaged in the chapter and our events, but even more so if they can create their own event and be really excited about it, keeping it participant-centered is really key. We found that you enjoy the flexibility, both in the endless ways for people to raise funds in a way that is unique and meaningful to them, but also that it's not a time-bound program. We find that this is now year-round peer-to-peer, option, and so it gives you a lot of that flexibility in fundraising, again, whenever you want and however you want through these constituents. And it's really going to be helpful to your chapter to explore DIY as a whole because of these great ideas that you guys are excited about. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Katie, and she's going to kind of review a little bit more about what we learned through that survey and more about our brand.
Great, thank you. So awesome. So those are some of the things that we were excited about. And you guys were really also great about sharing some of your outstanding questions that you guys might have, or some of your concerns, or maybe some of the resources that might be helpful for you to have to make considering an online platform like this something that would work well for your community. So I wanted to tackle some of the questions that had come up through those surveys so we can continue this dialogue and make sure that you guys are feeling comfortable. So a couple of chapters asked about the branding for Unite Your Way and some of the similarities that it shares with the Walk program. So Unite Your Way is joining our portfolio of peer-to-peer options for chapters and community members. So while we'll definitely target separate audiences than we do for our walks, it will definitely give us another tool in our toolkit to offer those who ask, how can I help, but perhaps walk isn't for them, they might live too far away, or they're not interested in the fundraising options that the chapter currently offers. We did feel that it was really important for Unite to be at the center of this program as we continue to represent the entire bleeding disorder community. And we wanted to look to engage our geographic territories as a whole. So that was something that was at the forefront of our thought process as we worked through creating this brand. We wanted to keep Unite, but just also add that more modern and flexible feel using the fonts and the colors, because we know that the demographic of DIY is often utilized a lot by a younger audience. And typically when we survey those types of folks, a lot of times the feedback that we get is that they don't want to be held back by participating in traditional fundraising options. So we try to design the logo and the look and feel and the overarching brand with some of those personas in mind. Unite Your Way was designed to capture an essence of uniting in any way that is meaningful to you for that unique individual, and that they can do it on their time in their way. Next slide, please, Diana. Thank you. All right, so a couple questions also came up regarding how the money will flow. There seemed to be a little bit of confusion that perhaps this would be an opportunity for chapters to fundraise through NHF and then those funds would be distributed to the chapters. That is absolutely not the case. As you'll see on the screen, there's definitely an option for constituents to register and designate their fundraising efforts to support NHF. We clearly designed the homepage to make it clear for our community members that they can choose to create a fundraiser to support NHF or a local participating chapter. So once they click on Get Started under that local chapter area you'll see on the screen, chapters who are participating in Unite Your Way will be listed in a drop-down box so that the community member can create a fundraiser for that local chapter. They will then go in step-by-step to register and set up their event. They'll have the opportunity to name it, set their fundraising goals, and have access to all those online fundraising tools that we love. Similar to the walk, the chapter pages will also be set up so that the payment gateway through authorize.net is linked directly to the chapter. So just like walk, everything is funneled through the local chapters. Funds will not be funneled through NHF. Everything will go directly there. Also, receipts, communications, and information on the public side of DIY will also be linked to the local chapter staff and offices, so everything will be localized to your local chapter. Donors will also be given the opportunity to donate back their processing fee to the chapter as well, similar to the walk, and we are finding that a good percentage of our donors are choosing to do that, which is great. We've worked really closely with Donor Drive and our design teams to make sure this is really chapter focused and friendly, and just really gives them another opportunity to fundraise and be a champion for our cause. Cost per chapter was a question that came up a lot as well. NHF has covered the cost of this program's creation. The chapter will only be responsible for the transaction fees through authorize.net and Donor Drive, similar to the walk program. And we've worked really hard with them to keep those processing fees to a minimum. Next slide, please, Diana. Thank you. So as you'll see on the screen, Unite Your Way has 3 primary buckets or choices for people to choose from, allowing them to create pages or events or campaigns either as an individual, or they can also create a team fundraising event that gives them the option of recruiting other people to fundraise and support the campaign that they've created. As we all know with the peer-to-peer fundraising model, the more people we have as champions inviting others to raise funds on our behalf of our organization, the more we're going to raise, the greater our reach. Online peer-to-peer platforms help us raise awareness and funds all around the world. So really, just like the walk program, this just makes it so that our options are endless in terms of recruiting donors and participants. The chapter services team will have access to the back end of Donor Drive in order to offer you the same support we do through the walk program, building out your sites, navigating the system, and coaching you on ways you can implement the program in your local community through things like data management and building communications and finding solutions to any barriers you might encounter along the way. Think of us as your coaches to this program. The participant and donor information in the system belongs to the chapter and is never used by NHF or sold to outside entities. So once we get closer to the launch, we will provide one-on-one training and support to ensure that the chapters that participate in this program have everything that they need to introduce this to your respective communities. We did want to highlight the ease for the user. as the way DIY is set up closely mimics that of the walk program. People can set up their individual fundraising events or create those team events, as I mentioned, but it's also customizable and allows them to utilize the features that we know make people the most effective fundraisers. It's going to automatically prompt them and invite them to personalize their page and share why they're passionate about supporting the bleeding disorders community. It's going to encourage them to make a self-donation that's meaningful to them to showcase their own commitment. It's going to encourage them to use the email feature to recruit participants and donations from around the world. And it's going to be set up so that it can also utilize social media to increase the awareness and participation in their events. So the other big question that came up is the time commitment. And obviously that's something we wanted to be really thoughtful of as we were building out another fundraising arm for chapters to participate in. We talked earlier about the efficiency of DIY for our fundraisers, but we know it's important to keep in mind the efficiency for you guys as well in managing something like this. So a lot of the chapters asked how much time would they have to devote to something like DIY. Like everything in fundraising, you're going to get what you give, but we don't want you to think about it like you're going to have to give it a whole lot. When you think about the part of your role that's dedicated to raising critically needed funds, think of this as one more tool in your toolkit to offer people that just happens to be really flexible, efficient, and allows them to really personalize the way that they give back, which inevitably makes it more meaningful to them. Don't think of this as a separate project, but something you can offer as you are meeting with current and potential supporters. Our staff is also working really hard behind the scenes on the back end to create communications that will be built out in our template DIY site, which will then transfer to your local page as they are created to enhance the user experience, but also to make it more turnkey for you at the local chapter level. There will be milestone messaging to recognize and coach participants to that next level of fundraising, as well as recruitment and activation messaging. And for those of you familiar with the walk program, those are those triggered and scheduled notifications that are kind of like a crock pot. You can set it and forget it, and really, lean on that system to do some of that everyday interactions with them. These communications are going to vary by email, text messages for those who sign up for that option, as well as badges to recognize their achievements. Chapters will also have the ability to modify, turn off, or add any additional messages once you have access to your pages. Donor Drive has really great placeholders in this feature so that you can really personalize those messages to the participant, like being able to pull in their first name or their fundraising goal, for example. It really makes it feel like every message is just for them. Another new feature in Donor Drive that we're really excited about is they can actually now track the email interactions and triggered and scheduled notifications. So we can actually monitor how many people have opened it, how many people have kind of clicked through, so we can get a sense of which messages are being best received. This is going to help us figure out which types of messages we want to build out more of, or maybe even perhaps modify some of the ones that are not performing as well. So in terms of next steps, we are still hoping and attempting to launch in the middle of June. So some of our next steps for the chapters is that we will be sending out an opt-in form application, which simply tells us that you're raising your hand and saying that you're interested in DIY. From there, we'll have a conversation with you guys and just kind of have a conversation around DIY, and then we'll start building out those pages for you. We are going to kind of do these on a first come, first serve basis. So please get those back to us quickly if you can. But of course, we're here to answer any questions that you might have as well. For our team, just to keep you guys in the loop, we're going to be working really hard behind the scenes to create a turnkey toolkit with graphics and suggested strategies. We're also going to include some sample communications in that. We're going to have social media samples for you, a sample newsletter ad for you guys to use to promote. And we're also going to be creating some DIY postcards just to kind of announce that DIY is on the scene in your local communities as well, that you guys will be able to use. So right now we're just trying to build out as many resources that's going to make it more turnkey for you guys at the local level, which we're really excited about. But we also welcome you guys to continue to share what you guys might need at the local level, so we can take that into consideration as we create these resources and training opportunities for you. So with that being said, let's move on to questions. And you can either put those through the chat window, or we can try to open up the line too. And we just hope that you guys are as excited about this as we are. We really do think this is the future of fundraising for our chapters. All right, any questions? So a question came in, what is the next step for an interested chapter? So later this week, probably Friday, we'll be sending out a recap from today's webinar, which will have the recording as well as the opt-in form for you guys to fill out. So once you have that, you guys can send that back into Diana or I, and we'll get that conversation started. Great question. Is there a minimum chapters need to raise in order to participate in this? Absolutely not. We will try to work closely with the chapters just to help identify prospective people to host these types of events and work with you, but there is no minimum.
And I just want to chime in on that too, Katie. So I think that's a really, really great question. You know, this DIY tool is really being designed, again, to offer your chapter some flexibility. But for those chapters who, let's say, you don't have a seasoned development staff member, or perhaps you're not sure if this is something your staff can handle at the moment, what I love about this is outside of the flexibility, it's really designed to just target your volunteers and identify some parties that would really be interested in fundraising on behalf of your chapter. So what's great is that no, there's definitely no minimum, and it doesn't have to be a volunteer, for example, that has experience in fundraising. It just has to be someone that's passionate. And from there, you know, we really hope to coach you as staff to really help and encourage and motivate those volunteers so that they can really, you know, kind of start leaning into what they're passionate about, and hopefully raising those first few dollars and maybe in turn making it an annual event. There's just so much flexibility. One of the next questions that came up is, what should a chapter anticipate in terms of time commitment to invest in this program? Katie, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can take that one.
Okay.
So what I would say is that initially it's just going to be letting the community know that this is an option for them. So I think utilizing some of the messaging that we will create for you just to get that into the hands of your community members. And I think at a time where you do have a little bit more time to spend on it, I think spending some time kind of thinking of different audiences that you might want to try to actively recruit into these types of events, and looking at any current third-party events that are happening in your area, and thinking, is this a platform that would make them more efficient as well? Because really I view it as you're out there in the community and you're engaging with people and you're hearing what's meaningful to them, just having this in your toolkit to say, okay, well, it sounds like, you know, our gala might not be for you, but you're really passionate about bowling. I can help set you up with this online platform that can help you be successful. So it's really something to work into everyday conversations as well.
And hopefully as well, like hearing more about DIY and interacting with why we think this is really the next step in fundraising for most chapters is hopefully this sparks some ideas of your own, of maybe some individuals you know right now who might have come to you in the past, and maybe you just did not have an avenue for them. And so this is really great because I think it's going to be able to provide that platform with minimal, you know, time commitment, honestly, from you outside of just really being their champion as they champion for your chapter. So that's really, I think, a perk to this as well.
Absolutely. Another question came in. If we participate in the Unite Walk, can we use our current authorized.net account? Absolutely. And actually, it will be connected to your authorized.net account that you currently have. That's part of the reason why initially, at least, DIY will only be offered to Unite Walk chapters, because we already have a lot of that back end stuff that takes a lot of time for setup already in place.
All great questions.
Any other questions? Is there a clear distinction in case walk funds are coming in at the same time as Unite Your Way funds? So although they'll be sharing the Gateway account, the one interesting thing about Donor Drive is you will have two separate logins to Donor Drive. So they are two different platforms, both within Donor Drive, which is going to help create some of that distinction for that as well. So although it probably would be a little bit more simple to have those all in one platform, that will help just keep that more clear. Great question. Anything else, guys?
I see one more, Katie. We got a question that says, I'm worried I don't have the time to do this, but it sounds great. What do you suggest? I would say, fill out the opt-in form when it becomes available to you, and let us at Chapter Services work with you to really develop a plan to make this work in your best interest and in your time. We recognize that some staffs are really small. It might be you and a part-timer, or maybe you just recently hired a development staff member, or maybe you don't have one at all, but you just don't know how this can fit into your day, into your week, into your huge schedule of events that are basically year-round. But the beauty of this, again, is that it really will offer this platform that as long as you set it up, and if someone's interested, or you can target the right individual to lead one of these fundraisers, is that it should be able to run on its own. Of course, with those first event, or those first few events rather, it might be, there might be a learning curve, but what I love about this is that since it is so similar to walk, I think that that time commitment really is going to be slashed a lot. So definitely, still, keep your interest peaked. I think that it's a great program for chapters that want to explore the flexibility, and also to target any fundraisers that might be feeling left out and not have a place, whether because of geography and where they're located, or maybe because walk just isn't for them. And so this is really a great way to engage those that just have something passionate about, that they want to take to the next level and hopefully raise funds for on behalf of the chapter.
And I'll just add too that when we were, Diana and I were at the ALS Association, we had a DIY platform that the first year or so that we were there, we really didn't do anything with. We really kind of considered it gravy. And we did have people who just kind of naturally raised their hand and would start events, and we got that money, and it was wonderful. We did see a big difference when we started to steward those people. Their retention rates were higher year over year. They were raising more money that second year as well. So there are benefits to spending the time on that. But I think initially just kind of seeing who bubbles up and raises their hand as a leader, and just paying a little attention to those folks. And I think that, the program will grow over time.
Absolutely. Well, I don't see any further questions, but I know that we have one last slide here. Katie, do you want to close out?
Sure. So obviously another reminder to join the coffee shop, especially if you have some new staff. But our next webinar is going to be on May 22nd at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that is going to be specifically geared towards new staff, as Diana mentioned earlier. So be on the lookout for an invite. And if you find too that people are not getting invited to these webinars, that should be, perhaps you have some new staff and we have not updated our webinar list, just shoot us a note and we'll make sure that that gets on their calendars as well. But thank you so much. This is really going to be an amazing program, and we're so excited to work hand in hand with all of you guys to help it be successful in your local communities. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week.